Did you know that in 1773, Phillis Wheatley became the first published African-American poet in the United States? At just 20 years old, she released her book, Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral, making history not only as a poet, but as a Black woman whose voice rose above the weight of slavery and racism. Phillis Wheatley's story begins in West Africa, where she was kidnapped as a child and sold into slavery. At only 7 or 8 years old, she was brought to Boston in 1761 and purchased by the Wheatley family. Unlike most enslaved people, Phillis was taught to read and write by the Wheatleys, and she displayed an extraordinary gift for language. Within a few years, she was reading the Bible, Greek and Latin classics, and the works of English poets, and she began to write verses of her own. Her talent was undeniable, but even with her brilliance, Phillis had to fight to be believed. White society at the time could not accept that an African woman, enslaved or free, was capable of such literary skill. In fact, before her book could be published, she had to sit before a panel of 18 Boston men, including politicians and intellectuals, to prove that she truly wrote the poetry herself. Their signed statement affirming her authorship was printed in the front of her book. When her poetry was finally published in London in 1773, it became a monumental achievement. Her work carried themes of faith, freedom, morality, and the contradictions of slavery in a so-called Christian nation. Through her verses, Wheatley challenged readers to confront the hypocrisy of liberty being celebrated by enslavers who denied freedom to others. Her words were revolutionary because they came from the very voice America tried to silence. Phillis Wheatley's legacy is more than literature. She stood as proof of the intellectual and creative power of Black people during a time when laws and systems were designed to erase that truth. She became a symbol of both possibility and resistance, inspiring future generations of African-American writers, thinkers, and leaders to claim their space in history. Though she died young at just 31 years old, her influence remains powerful. Phillis Wheatley was not simply America's first published African-American poet. She was a pioneer who broke through barriers with her pen and forced the nation to recognize the brilliance of a Black woman's voice. Her story is a reminder that truth, once spoken, cannot be erased.